In this session, we will present the outlines of the guide. It is published and it's available. We will give it to you after the presentation so that you can watch the presentation. Because if we give it to you now, you will not see the presentation. I will give you the first part of the presentation, and the other part will be presented by Mrs. Yara Helal. She is the economist at the center. The contents of the presentation is that we are going to talk about what is the background of preparing this guide, what is its importance, who participated in preparing it. We will make an outline of this guide, and then we will talk on how to disseminate it and what is the relationship with the different authorities of the country and what are the coming steps. The background of this guide is that there is a protocol of cooperation, like Mrs. Marie-Louise said, between ECES and Women Council for 3 years. We have signed it in June 2016, and the objective is to make and conduct some studies under the title of Towards a Economic Policy that is responsive to the gender. The first stage of this studies, there was a very big field visit on 13 governorates on the obstacles of economic enablement. Some people from the center met some women with different social segments in order to talk about enablement. The second part is on a legal study that have compared between what the Constitution said, that this is the right of the woman, and the current laws, and the gap between these two. These are the two studies that have taken place in the first stage.
As to the field study, of course, it has a lot to do with this guide, because the results are the basis for this guide. The results of all these studies have been put in the SDG for 2030 that was proposed to the President, and have been checked in other locations. Also, the reason or the objective for the field study was to show the problems between the economic representation and other factors, because 3/4 of the problems are shared by both women and men. I'm totally convinced that maybe women are not so much laws are not very unfair to women. On the contrary, I think that the studies showed a lot of things. But the main objective of the studies is to see the difference between between problems faced by women and problems faced by both women and men. We also wanted to know how different women are challenged by circumstances: old women, young women, rural women, urban women, whatever. And these were the three objectives of the field study. As to the approach of the study, we have been with a sample to 164 ladies in around 14 workshops or forums for more than 37 hours in all the governorates, and we reviewed all the statistics and the count of 2017 of CAPMUS. The most important factors that affect economic empowerment for women, and they are the triggers of change or drivers of change. We found that there are 4 main things that affect this. The first thing is, of course, opening up to other cultures. So, in this respect, all the girls and women who were able to open up to other cultures and to see a lot of other successful experience, or rural women who go to urban areas, they start thinking about work in a different way. This affected the way of thinking. Number 2, that was important, which which is the information availability, because women who do have information are more able to move, because 3/4 of the ladies they didn't even know what are the initiatives of the state. They don't know anything. They were completely in the dark. So information access was a problem. Number 3, we found that where technology was accessible and computer and internet, we found that women in these areas do work harder and could work from home. Also the supportive environment like education, health, infrastructure, transportation. This has a lot to do with empowerment, because if the woman cannot go out of her village, she will not work. This is a problem even for men. What about women? So these 4 factors were very clear as the drivers of change, meaning that if we work hard on these drivers of change, we can reach a very strong empowerment to women from practical side. There are certain also results of the formula here. As you can see, the squares and the symbols on the screen, you'll find that the green meaning that these are the most privileged, and the yellow is the average status. The red also represent a certain point, and we have lots of lines that represent a lot of things. We have reviewed these 4 factors that we spoke about as compared to the general results. We'll find that accessibility of information is very weak to all the sectors. Only people who live in the cities do have accessible information. You'll find all this in the studies, and of course we have used this in the economic and strategic dimensions. We have chosen a very important pillar out of the 4, which is providing information and accessibility. For a lot of reasons, this is very important, because if you don't have information, then you don't have anything. So this factor affects all other factors as well. Also, accessibility of information enables us to have quick results. This is very important. So when we have information, we've got it all. Number 3 is very logical. Of course, information is the field where we can really interfere. Internet and technology is the role of the state, so we can't control it. And subjective experience, we cannot control it also. So what we can work on is information. This is the most important part. And from this point, we have it, spotlighted here. Now, the idea of the guide and the support, Canadian support, were very important. Because the Canadian ladies, the beautiful Canadian ladies here, were very much enthusiastic, and they had lots of contribution, and this Canadian support was very strong in reaching our objective to have this guide and getting it in its final shape. The importance of this guide is that it, of course, narrows the informational gaps, and there is another guide by USAID, but the difference is that the USAID is very academic, but our guide is easy, accessible, and very understandable, and it's self-learned. You don't need someone to explain it to you. There is also the way of connecting this guide with the electronic logging into certain links, and it means that we are going on with the process that will change and will improve with the improvement and the change of information and status.
We will also publish it through institutions that deal with the MSMEs. So we are saying that we will create a system for the entrepreneurs. And this is something that is absent in Egypt. It's not the same as Malaysia and other countries. And so the beginning of this system, that there will be available information, and there are some entities that can give guidance. And it is directed towards the women, but it is used by all. And we know that the men will use it maybe more than the women. The participants in the preparing the guide, like I said, the guide is an internal effort inside the center. We have benefited from finance from the Canadian Embassy. Also the data we got from Dr. Mona Abdel Fakkar, and also the legal data from Hassuna Abu Ali, by Dr. Hassan Abu Ali, who is the managing director, and they made a lot of effort in this part. Also data on the different support programs for entrepreneurs, NIDA, EBRD, USAID, SEED, UN Women. All these entities sent us information and data, that because the objective is to make integration for what we have. The idea to cancel something and begin something from the beginning, this is not the objective, but the objective is to compile what we already have and simplify it so that the people can benefit from it. Also reviewing the content by Mr. Sharif Sami, who is the chairman of the financial monitoring. He thankfully reviewed it and added some things, and also the team of the studies, the center, reviewed the content and directed it in a way that could be easily used. And also the team of this manual, one who had participated a lot in preparing it, she is Mrs. Yara. She is economist from ECES. She got masters from 1 week only. Thank you. Good morning, all. I would like to take you to a tour in the contents of the guide. The guide starts with addressing the targeted groups, whether those women who are still aspiring having a private business, or because they have a need for independence, and the other group of targeted women who have businesses or projects, whether they want to expand it or have problems in its managing. And the guide then provides us with different objectives in 5 main questions. Can I make a project? How to think about the project? What are the steps that I should take? What do I need in my governorate? What are the entities that can help me in the stages of the project? The guide gives the answers for these 5 questions in 4 parts. The first part is how to enter the world of businesses and what are the main information that needs to be known. The second part talks about the different phases of the project and the services relating to each phase. The third part talks in details about the different steps of establishing the project, and the fourth part conveys some information on means of communicating with the different entities whom the women would deal with to get services. The first part, which represents the launching for the women, and so we are telling her that there is a self-test. She can answer this test her own, and through these answers she takes a score, and we can identify her level, and for each level we tell her what are the steps that she could complete. In addition to the self-test, the first part provides the information, the different main steps for all entrepreneurs. As to the self-test, it consists of 2 questions. The first part of questions that measures the personal skills and experiences, and the second part talks about the requirements of the businesses, and these are the questions that we have as to the requirements of the private business. Answering the questions is through yes or no, and then the score is being measured, and she doesn't give a score for herself. In putting these questions, we resorted to a big number of manuals of businesses that have been conducted at the level of the world, and we saw what are the different different self-questions and how to pose these questions. Based on the scores that are being calculated, we identify to see how much they are ready. Sorry, the handwriting is not very clear, and if she is not yet ready for the project, we just tell her that she needs to work more and not to lose confidence, and how to deal in order to have a bigger level. The first part also gives the main information that the woman must identify. We tell her what are the definition of the small and medium enterprises definition and the different phases of the project, and at last there are some main concepts like what is the legal form, what is the work plan, and we give her the different links through which she can resort in order to serve as a guide for her. The most important thing that we explain the different means of funding, so that she knows it's not only the loan, and we have identified these loans whether it's traditional project or a new idea. The other thing is how much the funding tool is according to the level and the phase of the project. Also the loans that are being given, like the lease, financial lease, risk capital, and factoring, and the different kinds of insurance and interest, and also the entrepreneurs that are still need more information in order to start a project, and what are the different phases of the project and the needs according to each stage, and the services that have to do with each project. And then we summarize these in a map. It's according to the different entities to which they are reporting, and at last we provide her some supporting programs for entrepreneurs of women.
As to the requirements of the project, we have three stages, main stages, which is the starting of the project and development and expansion. We're going to see what are the prerequisites and how we expressed all these prerequisites. For example, how does the idea started? This is the first stage, assessment of the idea, then market study, and after market study we come to the technical study, and then the feasibility study to make sure if she will be starting the project or no. So we have divided this idea according to three frameworks, like the conventional idea, and we have also graduation and scientific ideas, innovative ideas. All these are ideas that show the women who are the service providers to this stage. Women can also resort to other sources for help. There are a lot of research centers where women can go. The Scientific Research Academy also is another entity. We have compiled a lot of information that is feasible through logging into the link. We also presented a certain map for service providers in particular. We also made sure that the women would understand all the entities of service. We have some stakeholders and some information that were presented to us. For example, there are a lot of programs like sustainable agricultural programs and SMEs. All these are in the second phase. As to the third part, which is the official part, we start to show them what are the legal stages in Egyptian legislation, and we start to put for them the assessment and the criteria for the best project they can present, and then we start to put the steps according to the legal framework, and the woman will have to choose from these projects according to the prerequisites. As to the phases of the project, it's two-folded. Number one is the legal framework, and in simple terms, we just explained what does it mean, the legal legislation, and we have spotlighted the two factors, which is, of course, the number of participants and the nature of the participants. We explained that there might be one man show company, and sometimes we have other kinds of companies, and we started to explain the differences between these companies, and then we explained that there is the conventional pathway, as there are a lot of kinds of firms, individual firms or more. We also showed them the investment law and how can they use it to reach their objectives. Here on the screen you can see the companies or firms that were established according to the law of trade. We also showed the chronological order of the steps, and we clarified what are the entities that women can go to, and in each step we make her understand quite well without any confusion what are the papers requested and what are the which entities she can go to and who can provide help or assist her. As to the licensing stage after the legal framework, there are the procedures. We have chosen 11 projects, and we explained the licenses. It's trade projects, industrial projects. We made all the differences, and there is trade of Siemens, trade of fodders, and trade projects in hotels and so on. As to the trade or commercial project, we explained to women what are the prerequisites and what are the steps and what are the phases. And finally, the fourth part is the information bank, which are the network where the women can approach to understand all what's going on. We also presented certain sites for entrepreneurship, and we have spotlighted also all the entities where women can make the transactions and their location, and all the information are put in the electronic link so that it would be very accessible. And QRC was also presented to them. I thank you a lot for well listening.
How can we disseminate one of the problems that we have here in Egypt? Because we do something, then it stops. How to publish the report? We want to publish it through publications. We printed as much as we can. There will be a page on the Facebook. It already is on Facebook, and its name is here. We will publish it through the different authorities that are working with the small projects like Mashruak and the Center for Developing the Skills of the Women and the different branches of the National Bank, and anyone who wants this to publish it, we will provide it. We will make a website. This website will be ready after 3 months, and we'll add all the news that have to do with the women and the update of the different information, and through which a system will be built for guiding. And so the coming steps for us is, like I said, we have this page on Facebook, and during 2 months the entities can help after training the employees on the contents of the guide, and we will ask officially from the Ministry of Local Development to get some representatives from Mashruak and from the union and from the National Council for Women to come to us to the center to explain the content, so that there will make training of trainers, and so they will explain to the other people there, so that any woman in any place, whether village or cities, could go to these places if she wants to ask about anything. And we will make the website ready to make this guide a dynamic source, because the information is always changing. The data in the fourth part covers the whole republic. We are talking, for example, about the tax authorities in all the republic, all the procedures that are being told by Mrs. Yara. We have it in sections about the different governorates, and also we are trying to alert the people against the different problems that take place, for example, in the different procedures that have to do with issuing a passport, for example, and the disappointment, for example, when someone is trying to start a project. We want to, after that, this guide will be under the ownership of the National Council for the Women or the Ministry of Local Development, to include the most important news and success stories, and this is a gift from the National Union for Women.
Of course, Mr. Walid Turki there at the end is the designer. I just want him to know that he's doing a great job. Thank you. A lot of thanks, Dr. Abla. I think that this guide can be called the Guide for Egyptian Citizens for Entrepreneurship, because you've explained a lot of challenges not only faced by women but by Egyptian citizens. But of course, we know that women will use it in a better way. This is undoubtedly. So just include men also, because I'd better be silent because it's predominantly women today. I won't compete. Anyhow, this guide is long overdue. It was requested, it was very basic and very necessary also. I could say that, on all levels, the procedures required for any activity in Egypt is somewhat ambiguous and difficult. So having this guide as a starting point is this is a landmark. This is really very important, like a milestone, specifically in pertaining to the bureaucracy that's going on. I think that would be number two. Any objective in the reform, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, we'll find bureaucracy really less and less and maybe disappearing. I think this is a very good start. When you started your discussion, Dr. Abla, you said in the field study, and His Excellency the Ambassador also spoke about the inclusion of women in Egypt. I think that we can't take an umbrella approach because we really have to make clear certain information. What are the sectors where women are marginalized? What are the sectors that women are empowered? And in what regional sectors? Because we don't have a certain paradigm that covers all Egypt. Certain sectors, women are really very distinguished, and they are entrepreneurs. In certain regions, women, and sometimes vice versa. So it's very important to make this umbrella approach a targeted approach, because umbrella approach would overlook the right of women who are already doing well. The targeted approach is very important. The Federation of Egyptian Industry is a male-dominant field, historically speaking, I would say. But maybe 3 years ago, in cooperation with the ILO, we instituted a unit for women empowerment or women in business, the objective of which is not necessarily raising awareness of women, but we tried to use the FDI as a hub to highlight the importance of women in society. I would also say that some of the very positive results where Federation of Egyptian Industries has been represented in the ILO in Women Global Day. We are still male society in the industrial federation, but we are trying really to engage women by any way possible. I think that all the circumstances are very relevant to give a real push to women and empower her in a lot of initiatives, which I would say is very important. The representation of women in the parliament, the National Council of Women is a very active unit. 6 ministers are females in the Egyptian cabinet, and that is a good indicator of how the state regards women. And I think these initiatives give inspiration to a lot of promising women in the entrepreneurship that they know it's quite open for them. I am done with what I have to say, so. Am I right or not? This is women empowerment. She stopped me. I mean, I couldn't do anything. But what can I say more? Well, commenting on what you said, it's not across the board. Yes, you're right. There are differences and we have 2 studies that are conducted in the center to go on and carry over with this project. We want to see the employment of women along the different sectors, but the idea of the guide is to put the basics that should be there, and then we start to build up on this, which are the additional problems. But what is we are 100% sure of is that women, the moment the project starts, there is no difference whatsoever between men and women. The problem starts before the stages, the very preliminary stages, the idea and the resources. But once they go into the operational level, men and women are equal. It's the same suffering. Also, second point, there is a glass ceiling. Women, they do feel it. There are certain category that gets into any institution. They see the difference. There were statistics concerning the boards where women are very limited compared to the board of male domination. This is a glass ceiling that everyone knows. So the woman can see the position, but this glass ceiling makes her unable to reach the position. These are my remarks.